480 BC, northern Greece, the pass at Thermopylae, and the waters beside it. Xerxes I, king of kings, son of Darius, ruler of an empire stretching from the Aegean to the Indus River, has assembled a force that ancient historians described in numbers so large that later scholars spent centuries arguing about whether they were real. Conservative modern estimates place his fighting strength at somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 soldiers. His cavalry alone could field tens of thousands of riders. His engineers built a pontoon bridge of boats across the Hellespont, a strait nearly a mile wide, just to move the army into Europe. 300 Spartans held the pass against the leading edge of this force for 3 days. Now imagine something else is waiting at that pass. Not Spartans. Something that arrived quietly 6 days earlier, set down on a plateau overlooking the coastal road, and has been waiting ever since. That something is a U.S. Marine Corps forward operating base, the kind the Marine Corps has constructed and defended in places like Helmand Province and Anbar. The hardened defense position built around firepower, sensors, and layered defensive systems that have no equivalent in the ancient world. Not a supercarrier, not a missile cruiser, a ground installation, the kind of base a reinforced battalion can hold, the kind that assumes the enemy has modern weapons and plans accordingly. So what if Xerxes' army, 200,000 soldiers strong, the largest land force the ancient world ever moved in a single campaign, marches directly into a prepared defensive perimeter of a 21st century Marine forward operating base? Let's see what actually happens when those two worlds collide at Thermopylae. The base runs on redundant power systems. It covers roughly 3 square kilometers of fortified ground, hardened berms, concertina wire, overlapping fields of fire, and reinforced fighting positions at every approach. The sensor package alone would have been incomprehensible to any commander of the ancient world. Persistent surveillance drones flying at 15,000 feet, invisible from the ground, feeding real-time imagery to a command center that can track individual soldiers within the approaching formation from 12 miles out. The AN-TPQ-36 Firefinder radar system detects incoming projectiles, arrows, siege engine ordnance, any ballistic arc, and calculates the launch point within seconds. There is no ambush possible. There's no concealed approach. The moment the Persian vanguard crested the ridge to the north, every Marine in the base already knew the exact count, formation structure, and rate of advance of what was coming. What the base carries is the reason the sensor package matters. M777 155mm howitzers, 6 of them dug into hardened emplacements, each capable of firing 3 rounds per minute to a range of 24 miles with Excalibur GPS-guided shells accurate to within 2 meters at maximum range. M240 machine guns in interlocking positions covering every avenue of approach. Javelin anti-armor systems that can engage targets at 2,500 meters. Mortar teams with 120mm heavy mortars pre-registered on every terrain feature within 3 kilometers of the wire. And overhead, on continuous patrol rotation, 2 AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters, each carrying 16 tow missiles and a 20mm cannon able to engage targets at ranges the archers in Xerxes' army could have not reached with a week of effort. The position is not improvised. It's been prepared specifically because someone knew the enemy was coming. Xerxes' army. This also needs to be stated honestly. The Achaemenid military that crossed into Greece in 480 BC is not a conscripted rabble. The core of the force, the Immortals, 10,000 of them are professional soldiers, rigorously trained, equipped with iron-tipped spears, bows with a 200-meter effective range, and wicker shields reinforced with bronze facing. They're supported by cavalry units that conquered cavalry from Central Asia to Egypt. The Median infantry, the Bactrian riders, the Scythian archers, each contingent brings distinct battlefield skills. The engineers who bridged the Hellespont and cut a canal through Mount Athos to avoid a dangerous cape are not improvising. Xerxes' army destroyed Leonidas and his 300 through patience, numerical pressure, and a flanking route, not through incompetence. This is the most capable military apparatus the ancient world had ever fielded to that point. It simply has no doctrine for what's already watching it from altitude. The approach begins at dawn. The Persian vanguard, the forward cavalry screen, moves south along the coastal road in the half-light pennants flying, the sound of that many horses and that many feet carrying across the pass ahead of them. On the sensor feed inside the command center, the formation is already categorized. Forward cavalry estimated 8,000 riders, infantry columns behind a standard Achaemenid march formation, 5 or 6 men wide, stretching back further than the drone camera can see without panning north. A targeting solution for the lead elements is already loaded. The howitzers have been pre-registered on the road's narrowest section, the point where the coastal path compresses between the cliff face and the sea. The fire mission request is sitting on the battery commander's screen. The Marines are waiting for the order. The order comes when the lead cavalry reaches the 1 kilometer marker. The first 155mm round leaves the barrel at 2,300 feet per second. It travels 3 kilometers in approximately 4 seconds. It detonates in the middle of the lead cavalry formation with a kill radius of 50 meters. The second round follows before the echo of the first has finished traveling back down the pass. Then the third, Excalibur-guided rounds, each one correcting its own flight path on the way down, grouping within a few meters of each other despite being fired 60 seconds apart. There is no warning. There's no sound of approach that a horse or a rider can identify as a threat. The detonation simply arrives out of empty sky. The lead cavalry formation, 8,000 riders compressed into a column 200 meters wide, has nowhere to go. The cliff is on one side, the sea's on the other. This is exactly why the site was pre-registered. The Persian commanders react faster than most opponents would. Mounted officers are already riding the flanks of the column before the fourth round lands, screaming orders, trying to push the cavalry off the road and onto the narrow shingle beach. It is the correct instinct. It's 2,500 years too late. The Firefinder radar has already tracked every outgoing round, confirmed the impact zones, and the mortar teams are repositioning their pre-registered grids to cover the beach. When the cavalry masses onto that shingle strip, the 120mm mortars begin working it in a systematic left-to-right pattern. The drone overhead feeds adjustments every 30 seconds. The beach becomes as dangerous as the road. There is no position within the pass that is not already in a targeting solution. The Viper helicopters engage at this point, coming in low from the south, using the cliff line to mask their approach until they're a kilometer from the forward edge of the Persian column. The tow missiles begin reaching into the compressed infantry formation behind the cavalry. Each warhead carries roughly 3 kilograms of shaped explosive. Against men in bronze armor and wicker shields, the effect is not armor penetration, it's blast radius and fragmentation across a kill zone that can take 50 soldiers in a single detonation. 8 tow missiles in the first pass, 16 in the second. The helicopters are back at the base for rearmament before the Persian commanders on the ground have finished trying to determine where the attack is coming from. This is the thing that breaks doctrine faster than casualties. The Achaemenid military, like every ancient military, is built around the principle that the enemy is visible. You see the cavalry, you respond to the cavalry. You see the archer line, you advance your own archers. You see the flanking maneuver forming, you redirect your reserve. Every tactical decision Xerxes' commanders are trained to make requires a visible enemy to respond to. Rounds arrive from empty sky. Fire appears from a kilometer away and vanishes before the impact. The explosions seem to have no source. The psychological effect on men who have never experienced indirect fire, who have no framework for a weapon that's not in sight when it kills, is categorically different from the effect of casualties in a conventional ancient battle. These soldiers are not breaking because they're afraid of dying, they're breaking because the world has stopped following its own rules. Now the limitations. The Marine Battalion holds a fixed position. It can't pursue, it cannot exploit the collapse the way a cavalry force would. As the Persian army fragments and begins moving north back up the coastal road and inland through the mountain passes, the howitzers can reach them at range, but sustained fire burns through ammunition fast. A battalion-level base carries enough 155mm rounds to fight hard for roughly 3 to 4 days before resupply becomes the governing constraint. Against 200,000 soldiers, even catastrophic casualties in the first engagement still leave a force that numerically dwarfs the defenders. The perimeter holds as long as the ammunition holds. That is not unlimited. There's also the sheer physical scale of the problem. The Persian army can detach 50,000 soldiers to probe inland routes, looking for the same flanking path that ultimately finished the Spartans at the historical Thermopylae. The drone coverage is wide but not infinite. The helicopter patrols can interdict column movement through the passes, but 2 Vipers can't cover every mountain track simultaneously. The base's radar systems cover the immediate perimeter comprehensively. The flanking terrain, broken steep, heavily shadowed in the passes, creates sensor gaps that a determined force with enough men and enough time can find and exploit. The Marine Corps planned for this. Multiple contingency fire plans cover the most likely flanking corridors, but some of the risk is real. The ammunition constraint is the one Xerxes' surviving commanders would eventually identify, not because they understand modern logistics, but because they understand attrition. If the base is a demon that cannot be reached, perhaps it can be exhausted. Perhaps it runs out of fire eventually. Perhaps if enough men move through enough different corridors at once, some will get close enough to matter. This is not an unreasonable calculation. It's actually the correct strategic insight, and it's the thing that makes the scenario genuinely uncertain past the first engagement. The first day is not a battle. The first day is a demonstration. What follows depends on whether the Persian command structure survives intact, whether Xerxes himself stays in theater, and whether anyone in that chain of command is capable of adjusting doctrine fast enough to find the edges of a defensive position they cannot see, cannot approach directly, and cannot fully map from the ground. By the end of the second day, the pass at Thermopylae holds, the coastal road is blocked by debris and craters, and the Persian army has taken casualties that no ancient force absorbed and continued operating coherently. Whether the base holds through a week of probing, flanking attempts, and the grinding arithmetic of rounds expended versus routes secured depends entirely on what arrives in theater first, a resupply convoy moving north from the Greek coast, or a Persian column that found the right shepherd's track through the hills above the pass 3 nights earlier.